Hey, friends, thanks for tuning in to yet another exciting episode of Friends in the Squared Circle. I'm your host, Crander Q, aka my real name. Now, if you are a fan of Show Me the Collectibles, you have seen Monroe unpack his collectibles. He has agreed to come on to a second episode, so you will be familiar with Monroe on Show Me the Collectibles. Now, last time we talked, sir, we talked about hard to find books. So I went through my collection there to show off a few things to also promote Show Me the Collectibles because that's what we do here. My hard to find books here. The realest guy in the room, the life and times of trying to read that backwards. Dan Severin here. This was a fun one to hear about how he was an amateur wrestler there and how he threatened to beat up, talent if they messed with him. And I got that bad boy autograph. Such a genuinely nice guy.
Yes.
One of my probably favorite interactions because his wife was, just like off camera, your wife giving you a hard time. She was giving him a hard time, him trying to tell the change back to me. And then another one that I like to brag about a lot too is Jumpin' Jim Brownzell from the Killer Bees out of
Yep.
Minnesota here. Um, Hopefully, I can run into this guy because I want to talk to him some more about his stories, and that's kind of how this is. It isn't really a biography of sorts. It's more just stories of him on the road. A lot of great pictures in this one. He is a local boy from Minnesota. Another one signed there because I like to brag. Those are two that you don't really find on your local list, as well as OBD. Yeah, she is another Minnesota staple. She does
Yeah.
food truck all over here. I've met her, three, four times. My buddy actually got this one signed for me down there. And I forgot that he got it for me, and then he actually gave it to me for my wedding present, which I think is hilarious. So it's a great way to get out of it, getting a gift there. But another one signed. That's what I collect mostly is signed biographies when it comes to wrestlers. And this is the newest one in my collection. This is just came out. Medusa's
Wow.
story. Um, Now, I know she has a lot of things she says online. I've heard I don't really care because I don't read that stuff online. Now, I've met her a few times as well. This one I paid the local promoter to grab for me because I wasn't able to attend that show.
Yep.
But it is signed. This is the second book that I've had signed by Medusa, but I gave that other one away because that was the Women of Wrestling, and I had like 8 autographs in there, and I didn't want to keep messing that book up, so I gave that to a friend. But
So,
we are here not to talk collectibles. Oh, go ahead.
right. Uh, Before we get started, I got a good story on her. A friend of mine has it's a Packy belt, but he had the pink strap WWF Women's title, and
Okay.
he would meet her at a convention, and she said, "Do you want me to sign Medusa or do you want me to sign Alundra?" She goes, "Or how about this? I'll sign Alundra on one side and Medusa on the other," and that's what she did for him. So I thought that was
Oh,
pretty
very
cool,
nice.
and he still
Yeah, a
got it.
lot of them charge extra for that nowadays.
Yeah, he still got it for me. And whenever my daughter gets older, she's still into wrestling, which we'll get into that a little bit later.
Mhm.
He's holding it for me that way I can get it for her, and that's something she can have. So he's really cool. He's a really cool friend. He's like, yeah, if it's for her, he goes, I'll hold it back, and he has. He's kept his word on it. So
Very nice.
sorry, you brought that up, and I automatically thought of that. I was like, yeah. I was like, that's going in my daughter's collection because she's slowly getting into wrestling too.
Yeah, when it comes to the biographies, that's one thing that I do love reading and getting signed by wrestlers. So I wanted the monster truck signed because that's something unique that she does outside of the wrestling world, and I thought that would be
Yeah.
so cool for my collectibles and my little shrine behind me. But then I was like, well, I have to get the book because I don't know when the next time she's coming through. So let's just get the book and then try to get the monster truck down the road. I'm sure someone will be selling one on eBay eventually, and I can scoop that up. Like I said, I've met her a few times. She's always been a gem and a peach, for sure. Um, she doesn't scare me like Victoria does, so that's good. So, but we are here to talk to you, so let's just dive right into it, sir. What are those first earliest memories that you can remember of wrestling?
Wow. First earliest memories, I want to say 5, 6 years old. I was raised by my grandparents. My mother worked all the time, and her and my dad were never together. So that was I was one of those kids, unfortunately, that had to stay with that had the experience. Stay with mom on the weekday, be with the dad on the weekend. But my mother worked all the time, and I would stay with my grandparents. And one thing me and my grandfather we bond over, and he's the reason I got into wrestling. He used to have old Memphis tapes, old Georgia Championship, Florida Championship Wrestling from Florida, Mid Atlantic, NWA Mid America, which is also known as Memphis, but that's older Memphis. He used to have all those tapes, and we bonded over that. And I don't know why. It's just something I resonated to, and I could relate to. Even as a kid, even to this day, I still get made fun of. For loving wrestling as much as I do. I joke with my wife all the time. My first love is wrestling, and then she's my second love.
You won't catch me saying that here. So
It's a joke. She knows I love her. We've been together
I
about
know.
10 years. So, well, yeah, 10 years. We've actually been married this past December. So,
Very
but
nice. Very nice.
but she does the same flippy flop stuff with her books. So, I mean, when, I can't
I'm
really.
second place to the cat, and I'm probably sure the coffee takes precedent in this household too. So, but she said she loves me, so that's where we're at,
I
folks.
can relate. I can relate, my friend. I can
Yeah.
relate.
So with Grandpa, did he take you to any live events in those early days, or was it mostly just popping into VHS tapes there?
Sadly, no. That's one thing I wish me and him got to experience together.
Mm-hmm.
He battled cancer for 20 years.
Oh, okay.
So
Sorry to hear
that's why we'll get into why I got my name Monroe in a little bit, but he's the main reason I go by that name. But we always just watched wrestling. I try to get him to watch Raw. This is early to mid 2000s, so
that.
you know what's going on here. Just paint this, and he watched it, and who was it? Somebody was giving some kicks in the corner, and he just goes, "Oh, it's this judo crap. This ain't wrestling." And he popped back in another Memphis tape during the middle of it. I was like, "Peppo, it's like 8 at night. Shouldn't you be going to bed?" "No, we're watching Memphis now. I'm mad." I'm mad. That's not wrestling, son. This is wrestling. Uh, that's another
That's
memory.
great.
Yeah, just that. He was a great man, dude. Like one of my favorite stories, and this is why I wanted to be a wrestler. We was rewatching. You remember how back in the day? Well, we can say that because we're getting older. Back in the
Mm-hmm.
day, you know how WrestleMania would do the recaps like Mondays or the week after.
Mm-hmm.
So it was during the WrestleMania 21 recap, and it was the spot where Eugene and Muhammad Hassan was doing their thing, and Muhammad Hassan, of
Mm-hmm.
course, had Eugene in the camel clutch. Davari was giving heck in Arabic, and then all of a sudden, Hulk Hogan's music hit. Well, the funny thing, my grandfather, he used to have his breathing treatment right beside him. He had the grandpa chair, the classic grandpa chair. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
knows what I'm talking about. He was leaned back like this, and as soon as he heard Hogan, bam, like that, like a bolt of lightning struck him. He was like this to the TV, like glued, and he didn't move. He was. That's the most I've seen him, like the life, because where he's battled cancer, that's the most I've seen
Mm-hmm.
him. Aside from something that we done as a family, just he was just amazed and in awe and just happy. And he looked over at me and goes, "Now, son, that was a wrestler." And from then on, it's like, wow, if I can give 5 minutes of my time for someone going through so much crap and make them forget about that and make them that happy, that's what I want to do with my life. So right
That's
then,
that's a great story, man. Like I'm getting goosebumps thinking of my grandpa letting me watch it in the spare bedroom. Grandma didn't like it,
oh
having to
my
chip,
God, too.
So yeah.
Well, I'll say she said she hated it, but she was a Wahoo McDaniel's fan.
Well, okay.
So I think she secretly liked it. So hated Flair though. She hated Flair. Oh man, she hated him. She goes, he's just thinks he's all that. Which my grandma's Southern Baptist. I'm in Kentucky, and it's the stereotypical Southern Baptist. Grandpa worked, and grandma was the Baptist, leader. Not
Mm-hmm.
she didn't choir, but she led Bible study and stuff. So oh,
Very
that man
nice.
thinks he's all that, and she just got aggravated. And as I get older, I laugh because, man, well, that's the point.
Yeah.
But just great times, man.
Hmm.
That's what kind of got me into the sport.
Very nice. Was there any of those men or women back in the day that really stick out as those early favorites that you used to look for on those tapes?
Oh, 100%. One I resonated to was a tag team, was Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood.
Okay.
So yeah, that just shows how old those tapes were. Uh, of course, it was the stereotypical VHS tape. It's going in and out, blurry.
Hmm.
But those were that was a tag team that I think is still underrated. Um, I don't think they can. Steamboat gets the recognition that he deserves for a single
Yep.
competition, but for that tag team is underrated, 100%.
Now,
And then
Youngblood, didn't he become a producer too for WWE, if I remember right? Okay.
he did for a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I think I want to say he did, but that just tag team was great. One I really got into. It wasn't really with men, which I was a big Sputnik Monroe fan too, and I became even a bigger fan of his later because of how he desegregated Memphis. I think that was really cool in the 50s. I just went over that on a recent show of mine. Uh, we'll talk about that a little more, but he was another guy I resonated to just because of his brawling style and stuff. Uh, who else, man? That's a tough question. You got me thinking now. Uh, I'm trying to remember all those old tapes. Um, who else? Probably Jeff Jarrett's old stuff whenever he first started. I
I
remember
love
watching.
Jeff Jarrett. Yep.
I love Jeff Jarrett too. The long blonde hair. I'm talking about long 19-year-old blonde hair. Jeff Jarrett.
And that horrible thing that he wore in the 90s.
Yeah. Oh god,
Just
that's
trash, cringe
yeah.
looking at it. But I always liked him. In WCW, he always had the guitars. I'm a Jarrett fan, so.
Yeah. Now one I did. It was later on. I'm a big Foley and Owen Hart guy. I'm a big Andre guy. I'm a big Roddy Piper guy. Um, those guys, four men. Brett will be number five. Not in any specific order. Those are the top five for me.
Okay.
Uh, those are the top five that as I got older and learned more about wrestling, that's who I resonated to the most, and still do to this day.
Gotcha.
But back then, it was I would probably say Jay Youngblood, Ricky Steamboat, and Sputnik Monroe.
Okay. Now, as you get older, does the wrestling fandom, because it seems to be a trend that a lot of people kind of put it on the shelf for a bit and then come back to it. Did you ever have that lull of time where you didn't know? Okay. So
No,
now
never.
that's very rare with a lot of people that we have on is that they go through that transition into their teens and early 20s where it's just not the popular thing anymore. So that's good to hear. For me, I lost it. I started getting into more football stuff and
Yeah,
baseball. The old man put me in sports. I did wrestle, but I'm sure I was like every other kid, like, this isn't the wrestling I see on TV. I don't like it. And I dealt with a lot of bullying, being the chubby fat kid in school. So I just didn't want to deal with that while wrestling. I had my place in football because I was a lineman. But
yeah,
yeah, I got into the Maddens. I always played the wrestling games when they would come out,
yeah.
just so I could kind of keep up on it. But my fandom wasn't like it is today. And obviously, I'm hosting a podcast. Spoiler, 12-year-old Cal. But was there anybody as you got older in those early days of WWF or WCW, again, who sucked you in? Um, I know you said the four names, but was there? I'm trying to think how to word this correctly. That resonated that passion to get into the business. There we go.
Um.
Move sets and that stuff. There we go.
Well, aside from them, that's a good question. I always go to mainly Owen Hart, and Mick Foley. Those because Owen was. Oh, I still say it to this day, Owen was ahead of his time. He
Definitely.
would still be able to stick with the guys today.
Hmm.
I think Scott Hall. That's another one who never won a world title in a major company that should have, but really didn't need it in a way. They just had that charisma to them. Like they didn't,
Mhm.
you knew who they were, but it's one of those. It's kind of a bummer that they didn't win a world title. Scott Hall would probably be another one. I loved Scott Hall as a kid. I love the bad guy. Razor Ramon and Scott Hall both same
Mhm.
thing to me, even to this day. As a kid, uh, when I got older, I had this question the other day with my cousin, and he was always a Rock fan, but
Okay.
I was always a Steve Austin fan. I was a stereotypical Steve Austin fan growing up, man. Uh, because it's just he just reminded me of somebody that was lived down the road from me,
Mhm.
but can go around and kick someone's butt, even his boss's butt at the time. Because looking back at it, I want to laugh. I'm like, why did I resonate so much? Then he does something. I was like, oh, that's why. It's just like that blue collar guy, like you can relate to. I guess is why I resonated towards Austin more than Rock. Uh, but
Okay.
me and my cousin, we still have that fight to this day. He goes, well, look what Dwayne Johnson's done. He's had movies. I'm like, yeah, but Steve Austin's running his own ranch now, dude, and he's hosting
Mhm.
his own podcast. He's still talking about
Yeah.
wrestling.
And that was one of the bigger podcasts in the podcasting days.
Yeah.
Stone Cold also did movies. Now they weren't blockbusters like The Rock, Scorpion King, and stuff. But
Some of them were
I've
good
bought a few of
movies.
those movies. They're not bad.
No,
He does play a very convincing. I'd say B-list Bruce Willis in a sense. Now that Bruce Willis was doing every B movie there is, but you know, I could see him doing a lot of those type of movies and being the one carrying the weight.
there
I
was
believe it's The Condemned. Is it where he's on that island?
it was the condemn. I'm trying to think of one where it was like underground fighting. It had
Yep,
what's
I
that?
can see the cover.
I can
Pride, I
too.
think it's called.
Something like that. But it was that's one of the better movies. I think that was a good
Mhm.
dramatic role for him. And
Yep,
I'm like, yeah, he's playing this guy who can basically kill you in one punch, but
yep.
just how he led as an actor, great. The Condemned was a great film for him. I think
I
with
need to
him,
go
you
back
just
and
had
watch that one.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, it was. I could probably say it's kind of like how John Wayne was stereotyped as the cowboy.
Hmm.
Uh, he just had that stereotypical, anti-hero vibe to him, like action hero
Yep.
vibe to him. If it was the
Gritty,
80s,
silent.
if it was the 80s, oh, Steve Austin would have probably been as big as Dwayne
Hmm.
Johnson. Uh, but just how cheesy action films are, I mean,
Right.
it is what it is. But yeah, we still get into that argument to this day. So I'd say Steve Austin, growing up, aside from Foley and Owen Hart, would be the ones that I would resonate to. I never was a big Triple H guy. I was never a big Shawn Michaels fan. Just those guys. Just something just seemed true about them, if that makes sense. Like you can
Yeah. And,
tell that they
yep.
work their butts off and that they love the sport.
Yeah, for me growing up, it was Dustin Rhodes, Gold Dust. I don't know why you mentioned Foley. I love the mixed mankind persona. That
Yeah.
is probably my favorite face of Foley. I like that feud that they had with the Undertaker. I wasn't really necessarily Undertaker Kane fan, but I liked when they were involved with the Gold Dust and Mankind.
Mhm.
Paul Bear being an iconic manager. When you throw names around, he gets kind of lost in the shuffle because there's so many great ones above him. But how can you not enjoy his body of work? One of the things that I do love that you mentioned Stone Cold is I was like trying to like not laugh through the whole thing is the what being an iconic catchphrase there, being so simple. Him with Kurt Angle and the guitar singing, and then the one thing that always makes me laugh is like, I'm going to drink a beer, and I'm going to drink another beer, and then you see him online, and he's drinking wine. It's like what happened?
I wish my
you know,
friend Jay was on here with us. He has like the best Stone Cold impersonation. I can't do it.
nice.
But if you close your eyes, it sounds just like Steve Austin. And the funny thing is, I'm 5'8", he's about 5'6", short and bald hair, and he's got a
Hmm.
goatee. It's hilarious. He wrestled for a little bit as Jay Smooths, but he has like if anybody could get away from cosplaying Stone Cold, it's him.
That's
Uh,
hilarious.
yeah, he is.
And to touch on The Rock with his movies, one of my favorite movies with The Rock is probably one where he doesn't talk at all, and that's Faster.
Yes, I was
He
actually
just
thinking that.
beats the crap out of everybody and he gets things done. I wasn't really into The Rock or Stone Cold. I had to, with anything, I had to be different and I had to be, you know, find the people that weren't as popular
Right. Well,
because I
Dustin, I
wanted to
can't.
support those guys.
Right. Dustin Rhodes, that's not a bad choice at all. I think he gets a little underappreciated. Um,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until like later, I think, especially when him and Cody in AEW had that hellacious match.
Yep.
Just that Blood Brothers match was great. That just showed both of their athleticism and their
Hmm.
grit, and they wasn't afraid to take it to the next level with each other. So, yeah, Dustin Rhodes is not a bad pick at all, man, because he can do it all. He can be serious, he can be comedic. So you picked a really good one. That was really good.
And I
Fun.
gotta shout out my buddy. Yeah, I gotta shout out my buddy Nick. I met him through wrestling over in ACW Hornswoggle's promotion, where
Mhm.
Nick actually cosplayed as Gold Dust. He was invited backstage. I got to get him on here. I need to get him on here. He got invited backstage to talk with Dustin. He's met him probably a bazillion times. When they did the Swerve TV show for the network,
Mhm.
Dustin pied him in the face, so he got on there. You can see him walking in for WrestleMania. I actually have an autographed picture of him. I should put that on my wall, where he's cosplays. It was like one of five, and I thought it was so cool that he gave me one. And it's so funny that I bring up Nick is because he switched from cosplaying Gold Dust for a short time to do Baron Corbin, and he broke the internet because he showed up one night and Dustin actually tweeted it out. And it just, WrestleZone covered it. Other things were, clickbait articles where, prominent Goldust fan turns on Idol in support of Baron Corbin. And it was so crazy how he got to break the internet. And one of the nicest dudes I've ever met in pro wrestling. Super supportive. He's a huge Sonya Deville fan and got to meet her 1,000 times. And then I'm an Otis fan now. He got to meet Mandy Rose and all that. And I'm like, dude, it's not fair.
You
And
stop.
yep, I got to put it out there because this is the funniest thing I ever heard. Is him and my buddy Bob have met a lot of wrestlers. And
Mhm.
I was like, oh, you're just like my buddy Bob, and you've met a lot of wrestlers. Now, we all know what's going on with the man that used to be in charge of WWE. We're not going to get into that. But
Yeah.
he's like, has he met Vince McMahon? And I was like, well, no. And then he's like, he doesn't have shit on me. And that isn't a pun to go after the legal lawsuits, folks. That was just his verbatim. And I was like, all right, Nick's the king of meeting wrestlers. So shout out to Nick, one of the nicest guys in wrestling. I definitely got to get him on here. But back to you here.
No, you're
Um,
good, man. I love hearing
yeah,
stories, so you're good.
yeah. Yeah, I've bought gold dust stuff from him all the time that's autographed. And I was like, "Are you sure this is real?" And he's like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "No, dude, I'm just messing with you." Because the first time I met Gold Dust, I froze up. I was like meeting, your biggest star in your life. I said I was nervous like 9 times to the guy. He asked me about his book. I said I'm very nervous. He's like, "Did you read it?" I'm just really nervous. Do you want me to sign it? Yes, I'm very nervous, and that's all I could say to the guy. And then I got to meet him again in southern Wisconsin, and I was telling him the story because between me and my nephew, someone had to talk to him, and he's like, "Are you nervous now?" And I froze up and got the sweats so bad that I like just was like, "Oh, thank you, sir. It was great to see you again." And we just got the hell out of that line because I just froze, and that was just as he was making his run in AEW. Yeah, so he's on my list of people that I cannot talk to without getting clamory. So yeah.
Well, I told the Mick Foley story on the collection thing. I think that's the only time I ever froze up. But nowadays, man, ever since I got into the business, I've learned just to
Mhm.
chillax and just talk to him, man. Like I used to do. Like I don't think if I ever really got into the business like I did, I probably would have done the same thing. I'd freeze up on everybody I would have met. But
Yeah.
so far, Foley's about the only one because of that awkward handshake that I mentioned.
Yep.
I still think that's funny.
Check out that episode, folks.
But
Yeah.
yeah, please. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's
No. Oh, sorry.
don't. But that's cool that he remembered. Yeah, like you know, and you were just like, oh god,
Yep. And I literally was like, all right, Max, we need to go because I will hold up this line and just profusely sweat and not be able to talk to this man. Now,
Oh
I know
man.
everybody gets all crazy over Rhea and Alexa Bliss and Bray Wyatt's and RIP Bray, and that stuff. I would probably walk up and be like, "What's up, guys? Like, I got some stickers in the car for my podcast. You want to hear about it? Yeah, no problem. You put Dustin in front of me, and I'm gonna be like buckled at the knees, like, "Hey, sir, it's really great to see you." And then yeah. I mean, I met Cody. I wasn't as clamory, but my buddies were giving me a hard time. Luckily, I was able to get through that. But yeah, Dustin, all-time favorite right there. I've met Otis a few times and didn't get all nervous, but
now that I think about it, probably one I would have done if I would have gotten to meet him, probably Terry Funk would have been one for me too.
oh, okay.
So because
That's one that I haven't met. So
yeah, he was a big Terry Funk guy too. So which actually I just found his the LJN with I don't have the hat sadly or the bullwhip. I wish I did, but he was in surprisingly decent condition, so I bought that. But yeah, Terry Funk would have been one I would have definitely been like, I don't know what to say because he is 100% living legend.
Right.
And to me, he'll always say that. So he's like top tier. Like I'm a big Dragon Ball Z fan, so like Super Saiyan God.
Okay.
That's Terry Funk.
Gotcha. Now, as you're growing up, I'm sure you just like me. We lived through the Attitude Era together here. Were you a WCW kid? Did you lean towards WWF, or DX and WO? Where were you kind of leading your allegiance there?
I mean, come on, dude. Am I a WCW fan? Come on. I mean, come on. Sorry, I had to show this off. The spoilers for if a future episode ever come on, we may look into that. But yeah, dude, I loved everything. Because I was young. I was like 5, 6 years old during the Monday Night Wars, but I still remember them. I would flip back and forth like my mother. She's like, "Would you just pick one?" I was that kid.
Yep.
Then we had two. I want to say it was either Dish or Direct TV. You remember those big boxes, but people may remember So you can watch one channel in one room, one channel in another room. And my sister had her own. But some Monday nights she would stay with her friends because she was in high school. So what I would do if I had the babysitter, which my babysitter would fall asleep easily, I would go watch Monday Night Raw on the living room, go into my sister's room where I had WCW. I remember doing that because it was like a perfect L shape. Because here's the living room, here's my room, then there's my sister's room. So I would just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I loved watching both of them. And yeah, I was one of those nut jobs that watched both. But if I had to pick, looking back now, I didn't like WCW when it came to like the late 99, early 2000. I kind of grew out of WCW and started watching Raw. Then I think about mid 2000s when I started to get into it again, which historically looking back, I think is hilarious because that's when all that stuff was dying down and they were trying to build back up. But I'm a big WCW guy. I wish they never went out of business, but hey, it is what it is. I can go back at work and watch. I have 2 kids. My daughter is around the same age I was when that was happening. So now we get to sit back and redo that. We get to rewatch it. And right now she watches WCW more, which is cool. Because I think WCW was ahead of its time. That's another thing that was something. Eric Bischoff had something good. He just didn't know how to keep it, consistently going.
And then all the backstage drama and
yeah. So, but yeah, I was one of those nut jobs that watched both.
Yeah. Now we don't
So,
have a lot of hard hitting questions on here, but I got to ask this one as a WCW fan.
mhm.
Where are you on the Disco Inferno fan? Now we know, folks, he says a lot of stupid on the internet. We're
you
focusing on characters here. I know I said it with McMahon, but on Disco, were you a fan? Were you not a fan? Because I like to ask this question to everybody that like WCW. So
I was a Disco Inferno fan.
you
I
were or weren't?
I
Sorry.
was and
Okay.
I was. I am actually still. I go back and I love Disco Inferno.
Hmm.
Except for NWO Wolfpack Inferno. I still don't get that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But him like him tagging with Alex Wright, later on, I think they were called Boogie Nights because of that
Okay, yeah. The
Mark
dancing that
Wahlberg.
he did, and yeah.
But perfect. Two
Mhm.
guys that dance off with each other, put them in a tag team. That was a perfect idea.
Yeah.
Another little underrated tag team, I think. But yeah, I was a big Disco fan. Still am. I like Disco Inferno. Why not? He
So
seems
it
like a
seems
cool.
like, yeah, it's so funny how I thought I was alone in this fandom, but I actually enjoy Disco. Like I said,
Yeah,
I know he says a lot of dumb stuff on Twitter. We're not talking about that. We're talking about in ring perspective. But yeah, a lot of people lean heavy into the Disco, and a lot of people liked him. So I feel like I'm not alone here. And another guy that I really appreciated a lot. He opened almost every pay per view, every show. Ernie the Cat Miller with his
Ernest the
red
Cat
shoes.
Miller.
Yeah,
Yes.
I thought he was on a local show in my area, and I was so upset that I didn't see it or know about it because I would have went for that man, and it was actually an indie wrestler. So
Mhm.
apologize to that indie wrestler, but I thought it was him, and I was like, "Y'all got Ernie the Cat," and no one told me. They're like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "WCW, the Red Shoes, opened almost every pay per view." They're like, "No, that's such and such." I was like, "Okay."
I'll be
Just
over
know,
here.
like when he comes through, I think he was going to like one of the fan expos, and I'm like, I'm going to meet that man because he was my childhood watching those early matches, and he always had a good match. Same with Mark Merrow,
Plus,
before he
he
was
was
the
a
Wild Man, yeah.
plus he was a legit fighter too. Not many people know that.
Hmm.
Like he was a
Yep.
legit fighter, and not many people know this. A little, fun fact. Brodus Clay's theme, "Somebody Call My Mama," was first used in WWE by Ernest the Cat Miller.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
Not many
Got to go
people
back
know
and
that.
listen to those now. Yeah.
I was, yeah, I was rewatching. I think it was the Rumble in the early 2000s, and I was like, "Hang on, what? Time out! I know that one." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." I didn't know that. I knew he played the Randy DeRam's heel opponent in The Wrestler. That's also Ernest the Cat Miller. Not many
Okay.
people recognize him because he doesn't look like himself. But yeah, that was Ernest the Cat Miller, man.
Nice.
So
Learned a lot
it's
of
pretty
things here
cool.
today.
Sorry,
Yeah, I always enjoy his work.
I'm a
No,
wrestling encyclopedia, bro. So I'm sorry.
well, you're good. No, I usually ask the fan perspective of things. That's why I don't have to know all everything. And I was little then, not size wise, just age wise. Yeah, another guy that always stuck out to me was the cruiserweights, obviously, but this guy was Hawaiian Prince something or other. I always thought he was just sort of like just
Also
a little
known as the
badass,
artist.
and then yeah, and then he just like disappeared. So but
You know,
as we go ahead.
his sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. His last
You're
run
good.
when he dressed as Prince, and he had Booker T's wife as his valet. I think
Okay.
that's a little underappreciated. I liked it. Like looking back, it's like, okay, I like that. That fits him. That's really cool. Why isn't anybody doing this character?
Yeah, it just popped in my head now. The Brian Pillman versus Mark Merrow match. I can't remember the pay per view now, but that one, oh my gosh, that's a roller coaster ride. And there's
Yes.
one from WCW Greed, the last pay per view WCW ever did. There's a match between a guy by the name of Jason Jett versus
Mhm.
Kiwi, and he had like this hair that stood up, and he was bald in the
Kiwi,
front,
yes.
bright pink pants. I see he's doing stuff now again.
Is
But
he?
him and Jason Jett had such a fun match that when people ask me what's one of your favorite matches, that's one I throw out. I can't find it on YouTube anywhere, but it's on the network of that last pay per view by WCW, Jason Jett versus Kiwi,
Mhm.
and it's just a phenomenal little match back and forth. So
Yeah, that just a little tip. Me and you are getting along so well because I love little
Mhm.
matches like that. And you're like, that's my favorite match instead of like the, like Austin and Rock at Mania 17. What fans would call stereotypical answers.
Mhm.
Uh, just little matches. I appreciate that. That was a really good answer because that
Yeah.
looking back, it is a good match. That was a really good match. I like that. It was fun. Um, but yeah, wow. Wow, we're probably gonna talk a little more off camera.
Oh yeah.
Sorry,
Oh yeah.
sorry.
But the other thing, quick before we get to the end and all that stuff, let's kind of talk about your show on Facebook here, so we don't forget to plug that. Let's
Okay.
get that in here quick. Kind of give us a brief overview of that and what you do in the wrestling community there.
Well, I wrestled. I got into the business around 2020, and I wrestled in what's Gym City Wrestling in Jellicoe, Tennessee. And I wrestled as Joe Monroe. I never had a name change or anything like that. I wrestled there till recently. I've been working with Triple Crown Wrestling. This is their shirt, Piper style shirt. Uh, I got out of it because of an injury scare. Um, Never say never in wrestling. I've never said the words retired. I never will because you never know when I want to jump back in. But I started my show originally talking about. I did my first 3 episodes. They were practice runs on Roddy Piper, and it evolved into something because the promoter at Triple Crown was like, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but the Historic Society in Kentucky has zero record of pro wrestling." And I'm like, huh? I was like, Kentucky. He goes, yeah. I was like, you had CWA, ICW, NWA Mid America. They would tour here. And he's like, I was like, Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He goes, yeah, there's nothing. Because he used to work on historic properties in the state.
Hmm.
He goes, there's nothing. I'm like, okay, where are you going with this? He goes, do your show on it. I'm like, okay. That it was just like, okay. Then I did the first episode, which I took it down because I'm redoing it on ICW,
Hmm.
and they liked it so much that they're like, "Hey, do you want to become the person that interviews the guys and girls?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not? I'll give it a try. I'm not wrestling no more." Because this was like 2 3 months after I stopped, and I started doing the interviews, and it just caught on from there. So I would really say everything when I started really promoting the show, I started it as just having fun for me, something to do. Then I would say probably from October till now, it's just blown up. Like
Hmm.
I got a lot of great responses. Um, Doing the interviews, the history of pro wrestling, I'm doing that, redoing that, I should say. I actually got to talk to a legendary wrestler named JD Thunder. He was my very first one. Nervous wreck. That guy, he never done an interview ever. He
Hmm.
was so nervous, and I said, "JD, we're just talking, just me and you, and we're just telling people your story." And
Hmm.
he goes, oh, okay, okay. We talked for. I think if I let him kept going, we probably had like a 2 or 3 hour conversation. But he, after we got done, he was like, "Hey, I want to do that again. I want to tell people about you." And
Hmm.
ever since then, I've had legendary wrestlers around here like Hitman Louie, a guy who helped train me a little bit in wrestling, Rated X, aka Jimmy Walls. He got on my show. He did about 12 minutes because we did it at a show. We had a rush for time, but I'm hoping to get
Hmm.
another one with him soon. But just those guys, I love doing those interviews. Not only that, but like on camera and off camera, I can learn so much from 'em. I can absorb wrestling knowledge
Yep.
still. Um, and that's why I love doing what I'm doing. And I feel like honestly, I contribute more now because I'm helping out the guys and girls I interview, and I'm
Hmm.
giving people kind of like these history lessons. I'm helping promote 2 shows who I've become worked very close with. Triple Crown Wrestling and Ultimate Championship Wrestling. Go check them out if you haven't. Ultimate Championship Wrestling is actually the longest independent promotion that's run consistently in the state of Kentucky. They've been running since 1997, and that's with Terry England. So go check them out. We actually got a big show coming up March 9th in Caverna. That's like the big. That's like the WrestleMania.
Okay.
Um, so they have a legendary wrestler. I can't say who, So spoilers. Just go check out my Facebook page. They'll tag me in that. I'm hoping to interview that person, so that would be pretty cool. Um,
Awesome.
or people. They keep teasing more than one, and I wish they would stop because I'm
Already
mentally
working up, guys.
yeah, I'm mentally prepping one already, and I'm like, okay, here's the questions. Please don't freak out. Kind of like how I was afraid I was going to freeze up like you do with Dustin,
Mhm.
and I'm like, okay, don't freak out. Just be smart. Just talk. And they're like, oh, we got another person. And I'm like, who? And they told me, I was like, oh, come on, really? Uh, but I like it. The just transition. I think the hardest part was transitioning from being on the road to be a wrestler to being on the road doing interviews because we talked off camera. Like I feel like I do more cardio now
Mhm.
than I did ever wrestling because I'm not only doing interviews and stuff now. I'm also getting clips of matches to do the highlight reels for the following week, which one's already done. You should be able to view it soon. I think it should be out by now. If not, I'm going to talk to the promoter, but it should be out by now. I'm doing that, doing the interviews, um, helping other guys do other stuff that need help with other companies that they're working for. Here this month, I'm actually going to be doing a memorial show like this setup for my cousin Roland Hard because nobody's talked about him, and he was probably one of the most underrated guys that came out of IWA Mid South, which people may know CM Punk, Chris Hero, people in that nature, cross paths there, cut their teeth there, and then move on to better things. But him, he was a big guy my size, could
Mhm.
move like a cruiserweight.
Very
If that,
nice.
yeah, he was great. IWTV, if you got it, if people got it, go check it out. It's early 2000s especially. I know it's a hardcore promotion, but he did a gimmick where he said "hardcore no more," and that's where I think he really shined at because he was able to show his wrestling ability in the ring, and that just it amazes me. I'm just like, you're the same size as me, and doing this, especially when I was wrestling, I'm like, I suck compared to you guys. What the heck, man? But he had a different style in wrestling, so uh, I love it. Like you asked earlier if I took a break. No, I've always loved wrestling. Never taken a break
Mhm.
from it. I got picked on in school for loving it, and I was a little bit of a chubby kid myself in school. So I get being bullied with all that. But now those people who bullied me, I run into them and they're like, "You got into wrestling?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Dude, that is really cool." Like they come
Yeah.
up to me and like, "That is really cool. You got into something you love." I was like, "Well, it's the only thing I've ever studied in a way.
Mhm.
People want to become a police officer or a firefighter or a doctor. Me, I've always wanted to be in the pro wrestling business because to me, it's something personal that I love, and it's kind of like the mob. Once you're in. no matter if
Very
you're
nice. Yeah.
no matter if you're wrestling in ring or you're just doing backstage stuff. The backstage stuff is as important as putting on a 5-star match in the ring. So a lot of people get a misconceptions about it. I was a little skeptical
Mhm.
about it whenever I first started, but it's a lot of work back there, man. A lot of work. Even doing stuff like this, a
Yep.
lot of work. A lot of work. So I appreciate you taking the time doing this with me. And whenever you messaged me, I was like, "Yeah, cool, let's do it." I know. Let's just go ahead and go for it. Just send me times and stuff because I know
That's.
the time constraints and having to edit and everything. Uh,
Mhm.
I've grown just a newfound respect for it. Just doing it myself because I thought it was a cakewalk, but oh boy, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
I
I
hear
was
you
wrong.
there.
More like a rude awakening, pun intended to Rick
Yep.
Rude. But
And the
don't
nice
mean.
thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to keep talking there. So
No, you're just, hey, you're the star of the show. I'm just the host. The nice thing with your podcast is that you are keeping the history alive. And then just like with everything else in this world, wrestling has more than just one flavor.
yeah,
We got my buddy JD. He's doing media and wrestling. Mike D from the 313. He's doing basically to keep the spotlight on his area in Detroit, as well as we got Thomas, the Drip God doing wrestling fashion. We got Stanley Kerr covering, charity work within the means of wrestlers giving back to their communities. We've got Cruising with Kayfabe. They cover the Jericho Cruise and stuff along those lines. You got Honor Elite, specifically AEW, 13 Card Subject to Change. They're covering the ins and outs of everything going on in wrestling. And if you're looking for a podcast on wrestling, um, dive into it more because there's more fascinating stories than
Oh
just
yeah.
what is on basic Mondays, Thursdays, Wednesdays, Fridays. It's unlimited. It's untapped.
Oh
And what you're doing is very unique. I know you're doing the trivia thing. I've popped in a few times when I'm working, if the boss
so
is watching.
so
So
Don't mean to interrupt you. So funny thing about that, we were snowed in up here. We you probably hit with it too. That snowstorm that hit about a month ago. Uh, so
we
we
haven't really had any.
so Kentucky was hit with a snowstorm, and I just knew in my gut we had a show coming up and we would have to cancel because snowstorm. It snowed 3 or 4 days, stopped, warmed up. They're like, oh, we might be able to have the show. I'm like, no, because immediately the next day
Mhm.
after that 2 day break, it started again. So I'm like, I'm just going to do a trivia night, just to see if people would be interested. And a lot of people tuned in for it, man. I
Mhm.
was excited
Yep.
about it because I think it hyped me up more. It was just something fun to do. I'm not going to do it as often. I may do it every now and again, but that was just something for the fans to be like, hey guys, let's just have some fun. Come on, as I call my fans pro wrestling fans, because that's what I am. I'm
Mhm.
a pro wrestling fan. You're a pro wrestling fan. You're everybody, even the worst enemy, is a pro wrestling fan, whether they know it or not. Uh,
Right.
and that's why I tell people who are like, I don't know about wrestling. Just come to a show or go to a
Yep.
local
And you'll love it. Yep.
and you'll love it. You'll fall in love with it. One of my friends, who was it? It was a work friend, Josh. Sorry, Josh, don't mean to uh, pull you into this, buddy, but he was very skeptical about wrestling, and he came to one of my shows, and he's like, "Okay, I can see why people like it." He goes, "It is a bit entertaining." And he goes, I kind of like it, and he pays attention to this day. He's like one of my first OG followers. So
Very nice.
yeah, so I think with the show, uh, from because I think I started in July, and uh, from July to like October, I only had under 100. Then when I started, helping and doing the history stuff,
Mhm.
it's just blown up, dude. Like
Nice.
it blows my mind to this day on how quick it caught on. Because I'm just like, I'm gonna do it. If people watch it, cool.
Right.
Uh, and if not, cool. It's just going to be out there for someone who may find it later on down the road. And it's caught on really quick, and that's when I decided to. This year, I was going to redo every history of pro wrestling episode that I did because, you know,
Perfect.
dude, I was in my. To be honest with you, I was in my laundry room. I didn't have a big setup like this,
Mhm.
so it was like low key first cut. Uh, but I was like, I was thinking during the trivia things, uh, yeah, I want to redo those. So I
Perfect.
redid
Yeah.
NWA Mid America is the first one. It's up on Facebook. Go check it out. The next one I'll do is on Valentine's Day, which is IWA Mid South. So that's the next one. That's going to be good. But with everything, uh, Triple Crown, anything after a show that following week, Wednesday, that's when I do the recaps, which kind of a spoiler alert, something bigger is going to be moving on and replacing that. I can't say, but it's something that's going to kind of up the ante of the show, thanks to the promoter. And I think
Okay.
that's one thing that I love is that these promoters, because I'm working with 2 to 3 promoters locally, and they have given me so much freedom, and they respect what I'm trying to do. And what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. They just gave me hope again because any wrestler that thinks they're completely done,
Mhm.
they go through a depressing state. That's
Right.
wrestling is what I want to call it. And I did it for. it wasn't something I was really forced to do. It's something I spoke with my wife about because my kids are getting a little bit older, and I don't want to be, crippled and then me trying to go
Hmm.
to a basketball game or something. Um, that was essentially what it boiled down to. So I'm like, it's nothing really major, but it could lead to something major later on, is what it was discussed. Uh,
Yeah.
I miss it. God, I miss it. I miss
Yeah.
being in the ring. It's not the fan reaction because I get the same fan reaction doing this.
Hmm.
It's just there's nothing like the feeling whenever you're running a rope. I can say that it's like best way to describe it is kind of like a motorcycle ride because my grandpa was a big
Okay.
motorcycle guy. I actually got in trouble. I got the hat he wore that day too. It's like the camo hat that I wear sometimes. Um, Even with him sick, he just that freedom, man. That's what it feels like. It hurts. God, it hurts,
Yep.
especially ropes, but it's worth it. Just that freedom. Like last time we had a show this past week, I got in and ran the ropes, and I just smiled because it's just like
Hmm.
this is it's like my zen. And I always tell people, and wrestlers can probably relate to this. The squared circle is home. Like I got my wife and kids. I finally got my first house,
Hmm.
but you know, the ring has always I felt like I've resonated with it. And when I first stepped into it, it felt like I was back at my grandparents. It felt like home, and it still feels like
That's
home to me
nice.
to this day. Um, will I ever get back in the ring? A lot of people has asked me that, and I'm like, never say never. I used to tell them
Exactly.
no,
Yep.
and I used to tell them no, but now that because I still work out in the ring and stuff, especially when we have new guys. Um, but now I'm just like, maybe. I never say never in
There you
wrestling.
go.
You never know when I might get back in. If I do, I'll say this: if I do get back in, I'll do it for one more time. Then I will lay the boots in the ring and be done. Because
There you go.
I'm as happy doing stuff like this than as I am with wrestling. I love wrestling; it'll always be my first love. Sorry, honey. I know you're probably watching this. Actually, she's standing right across from me, so. uh, but she knows like this is she's been very supportive, so this wrestling will always be a part of me, even so much so that I'm passing it down the line to my kids. My son's a little bit into it.
Hmm.
uh, he's not as into it as he is with dinosaurs like you are. Like I said earlier, you and him would get along just fine.
Hmm.
But my daughter, she's getting into it. Like she even asked me a few days ago, actually she probably demanded, Dad, you need more girl wrestlers in your shows. I said, well, honey, do you want to break that mode? She's like, yeah. Yeah, 8 years old has that sass, man. But
Yep.
but the funny thing is, she's I think she can do it if she wants to. Her mother may disagree, but if she gets into it, I wouldn't mind being there every step of the way to show her how to correctly do things. And for anybody that's getting into wrestling, I'm sorry to keep on talking here. Uh, Make sure the best advice I can give you guys, especially if you think about it, get into a good school. Don't get
Right.
bamboozled by some people who say,
Better
"Oh, well,
just
give me
save your money.
$500. Yeah, give me $500. I'll show you how to do it." No, no, save your money. Go to a good school. There's good wrestling schools everywhere, and just learn your craft. One thing that my cousin told me when I was little, people who say they're 100% trained, I'm sorry, you're wrong. If you think
Hmm.
100% trained, then you just need to go ahead and retire. That's what the promoter always told me too. But that's the beauty of pro wrestling. Even from a fan's perspective, you never stop learning with this business. It just keeps the knowledge just keeps growing and growing. Same thing can be applied to anyone who wrestles in ring. Your in ring knowledge will just grow and grow and grow. Um, and if you can
I gotta
get
pause you real quick here. Gotta pause you real quick here. No, you're good. Looks like she is done early here, so if you want to plug those socials real quick, and then I got to get out of here before she decides to find somebody else to love.
no, you're
So,
good, man. Sorry, but
no,
yeah,
you're good.
to just sorry, just whenever just advice for the younger people. if you want to get into it, just pay attention to what you're doing. But yeah, with the socials, you can find the Joe Monroe Show on any social media platform: Facebook, YouTube. I go by Joe Monroe on TikTok. I don't post much there, but I'm probably going to start doing that. Um, but main things I do is on Facebook and YouTube. If you can, we're on our way. We're trying to get to 1,000 by June. I think we can make that goal. So if you
Perfect. Yeah.
can, try to help out there. YouTube, I think I'm just a little shy under 50. So if you guys want to go follow the YouTube page, go ahead and do so there. Same videos go on each page, but it'll mainly be on Facebook. I give Friends of the Square Circle, if you haven't, go follow them because this guy's been really cool. Me and you connected right away, so that's great.
Hmm.
And I love how you're networking with other shows. I 100% support that, especially if they're giving out knowledge and stuff. So kudos to you guys for doing this, and thank you for having me on both
Hmm.
shows. So I'd love to come back on anytime you want. So
Yeah,
as
definitely
long
got to get you back on. Unfortunately, the wife is getting done with work early. She tends to do this whenever I have scheduling things. But guys, we will post his stuff up on the Facebook. And as always, thank you for being a friend of the Squared Circle, Monroe. And we will chat more. Definitely, we got to keep chatting toys and wrestling. So it's your boy, Crander Q. Crander Q out.